But a new survey from the Federal Reserve shows a decline in economic optimism in some districts and growing concerns. Steve Liesman has the details from Washington for us.
The Federal Reserve's Beige book, the collection of economic anecdotes from around the Federal Reserve's 12 districts, saw 8 of 12 districts reporting increased growth at a modest to moderate pace, but 4 districts, Kansas City, New York, St. Louis, and Cleveland, saw less robust growth. In fact, growth was flat in Kansas City and leveled off in New York. The outlook remained generally positive, but many districts said their contacts grew less optimistic for 4 particular reasons: because of the financial market volatility, rising interest rates, falling energy prices also hurting optimism, as well as elevated trade and political uncertainty. The shutdown was only mentioned by the Chicago district related to farmers not receiving government payments, but only a small part of the shutdown was covered by this Beige book so far. There were several mentions of tariffs linked to rising uncertainty and higher input prices. Some companies, however, were able to pass along those higher tariff prices to consumers. Several districts said Christmas sales were pretty good, but auto sales were flat. Manufacturing expanded in most of the districts, but slower growth was reported. Services growth slowed in a few districts, and the agricultural sector struggled with lower prices. The Beige book reported a pretty rosy picture for employment, with jobs growing in several districts. Labor markets were said to be tight, and business contacts said they had trouble finding staffers. There was even some labor hoarding going on in Atlanta, with extra workers hired than were needed. Modest wage gains were reported throughout the country, though entry-level wages were rising. Despite those higher wages, prices throughout the economy increased only modestly. There were some higher input costs by businesses, but they had trouble passing along those higher prices to consumers. Overall, this was a mixed report showing that growth was still continuing in the country, but at a slower pace. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Steve Liesman in Washington.